This is Arts Alive. I'm Lynda Phillippi. My guest is Monica Setzoil Phillips. She's a Sheridan artist, and she's involved in many, many different artistic endeavors in the county. So, welcome.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
I think the last time I saw you was at the Terroir Creative Writing Festival.
Yes, it's such an exciting thing to have a festival like that right here, and to hear writers from all over the state come and talk about their work, and give other writers the chance to talk with them, and also during the open mic session to read their works. So it's just a very good way for the community to get better involved in the arts, which is something I'm very interested in.
Absolutely. So how long have you actually been a working artist? I mean, quite a long time, as long as I've lived here, I think.
Yes, yes. I would say really a working artist since '86.
Okay.
Before that, I always had odd jobs.
Yeah. Do whatever you have to do.
Yeah, and my husband and I lived in the Bay Area for 11 years prior to moving back to Oregon, so did odd jobs there as well.
Okay. So what kind of have you been involved with over the years? You want to talk a little bit about your evolution as an artist?
My evolution, well, I was very, very fortunate to grow up in a family of people. Both my father and mother were very interested in the arts, so I had a lot of exposure, both my brother and I. And then, of course, my father was a very well-known artist. And so, but I didn't start out to be an artist. I started out to be a language teacher.
Okay.
And my senior year, I had some free hours that I could do whatever I want. I said, I'm going to do something for fun.
Sure.
And so I was either going to take weaving or ceramics, and weaving fit in my schedule and ceramics didn't. So it's a serendipitous event, because after that, I really fell in love with weaving, and by the end of my senior year, I was being kicked out for staying too long.
Oh my goodness.
And the janitor would say, I really do need to lock this room, you know. That was at Portland State University. So,
well, weaving is not something you can do fast. It's not a quick project. It's a slow process.
Weaving is for, you know, my belief is everybody has patience, but not everybody has patience in all areas.
Right.
And so weaving is for people who don't mind tedious beginnings, because and actually carving kind of is too, because you have to set up the loom, you have to wind the warp and thread and do all of that before you get to the fun part, which is the actual weaving. Yeah. So, and the same kind of is with also with carving, in that I always do the perimeters first, because that's the least fun.
Okay.
So I like to get that out of the way first, and then get to the fun part. And sometimes that takes quite a while, but that's okay.
And you're going to have a show opening soon.
I'm going to have a show opening the very last day of this month in Newberg at the Art Elements Gallery.
Okay.
It's from 4 to 6 on the 31st of May.
Okay, that's the opening.
That's the opening.
It'll
runs for about 3.5 weeks, I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know you brought some images of your work.
I did.
So if we can show those, maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of them.
Okay. Well, the piece on my left is the piece that's currently part of the collection at Chemeketa Community College.
Okay.
And that was a piece that was brought about or inspired by education and the whole process of going up from very beginning, the very beginning of kids being interested in the arts on up through. It turned out, I think, quite well, and I was very, very pleased when Chemeketa bought it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, but this gives you, both of those give you a good idea of what I do. Because I'm doing two different processes, it takes time at the conception stage because I need to see how the two are going to integrate from the very beginning.
Right.
And also, you can sort of tell that I have to excavate a channel for the weaving to fit into
Of course.
as it goes around the wood.
Right.
So the weaving has to be done first. And of course, when you weave, you have to determine from the beginning how wide you're going to make it and how long you're going to make it. So then after I can excavate the channel, that's part of the tedious process.
Right, scooping it out.
Yeah, then you can, then I can get to the carving part and integrating the two. And I love, okay. I love the Oriental cloud form. In fact, I just finished a piece today for the show that is, again, has a stylized Oriental cloud forms. That piece on my left is called Spring Rain, and the piece on the upper right is a piece called Three for a Penny. And I was just thrilled when a woman named Penny bought the piece.
Oh, I love
so that
it.
was very nice. And then the lower piece is, I just got intrigued with the idea. Well, I've always been intrigued with the idea of shadow and how shadows, how the light goes through. And so that was just an experiment, kind of with odds and ends, actually. So it was nice to use the odds and ends. And that shows you, those two lighter woods are both Alaska yellow cedar, and the top piece is mahogany, and those and black walnut and teak, those are mostly the woods that I use.
And aren't those all really hard woods?
No, not Alaska yellow, because that's a cedar. But of the cedars, it's the most dense, and so it lends itself well to carving.
Okay.
In fact, the pieces that are at the McMinnville Civic Hall are Alaska yellow.
Okay. Yeah, it is a really pretty color.
Yeah. The piece on the upper right is something that we can't get a close-up of that, unfortunately, but mostly I do tapestry technique, and but about 3 or 4 years ago, I went back to a technique that I did very, very early on when I was a senior, called sumac, which is a Middle Eastern rug technique.
Okay.
And I have a couple pieces like that that will be in the Art Elements show. Well, of course, tapestry weaving is kind of tedious in that you're not throwing. It's not like when you're weaving cloth and you just throw the shuttle. So every color has to have its own, what we call butterfly, and you're only going back and forth in that color area.
Do you do it with a needle?
No, you have a little butterfly, we call it.
Okay.
It's a little bundle of yarn that you put together.
Oh, okay.
And each color section has
Oh,
its
my
own
goodness.
butterfly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty, it's a lot of fun. I love color, and that's why I like putting the two together. I'm so glad I have the weaving, because it's very exciting when you see colors come together.
And, when you finally get enough of it done so that you can see what it's going to look like.
Although sometimes that doesn't always work. Sometimes you say, oh, this is not going to work. What I thought was going to work isn't, because when you have a ball of yarn, say, how that ball of yarn looks next to this ball of yarn is one thing.
Right. How
when they're flat and reflecting the light differently, how they look, that makes a difference. So,
well, yeah, it's like when you're going to paint a room.
That's right.
And you put a little swatch on the wall and you think, okay, that's going to be all right, and then you get the whole thing painted, and it all sort of amplifies. The colors kind of bounce off of each other, and then the light comes in, and you think, whoa, that's really a lot brighter than I had.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And then the unfun part of that is that if that happens, then you get to unweave.
I was going to say, do you unweave or do you start over?
I try not to. Yes, it's not fun.
Okay.
But the thing about weaving is you do have the possibility of unweaving, whereas once you take it away with carving, it's gone. So what I like to say is what I like about putting the two together is when you weave, you're building something by adding. You're adding the weft to the warp. And when you carve, you're building something by taking away. So it's the kind of yin and yang kind of process.
It's kind of a nice balance, isn't it? Those are really beautiful pieces.
And you can see some of those pieces have metal in them. I have done a collaboration with a friend of mine, Dixie Panu, and she does the metal.
Oh, interesting.
That adds another dimension.
Like-
The one piece, the two pieces on either side are both, though you wouldn't quite guess it. I have a friend who's a photographer, and we've done shows together where I take a photograph and see what it says to me, and then I kind of translate it. And so actually you would probably never get, well, I don't think you would guess it, but the piece on the right is a takeoff of part of a photograph of the Astoria Bridge.
You're right. I never would have guessed. Yeah, I would have just assumed it was some abstract thing.
Well,
Abstract
it
design.
is, but it's an abstract element of
Based
of
on
the,
something specific.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wow.
Right. So the top piece is the river and the city, and that was a commission for a lawyer in Salem.
That's beautiful.
And the freestanding piece on the lower left is a piece that's at the Allison. And so I've been there's the McMinnville Civic Hall piece.
That's beautiful. Now, will you be borrowing some of these pieces?
No,
To show
all the work in the show is new.
is new. And the kind of work you do, it's not like you can just whip something out for the show. I mean, it's definitely a process.
It's definitely, yeah, you have to start, I mean, I start thinking about things quite a bit in advance. And yeah, but it is, yes, it's not an afternoon's work, no.
Exactly.
No. And that's the thing that we need to, I think, we're so used to in this society of doing things instantly that, especially when we're working with kids, we need to get the idea across that good things take time, and that it's important to take your time. And the first thing you do might not be the best thing you do, so take another look at it. Those are elements that those are concepts that I like to share, especially with young people, that it's important to look at things that way.
What's the name of your show?
The name of my show?
It's just a...
I think I don't think there's a name.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not, especially this show is not a theme show.
Okay.
It's just my work.
Okay, and it'll be at Art Elements Gallery
right.
in Newberg.
In Newberg.
From May 31st through late June.
Yeah.
Well, Monica, I really want to thank you for coming today.
Well, thank you, Lynda. It's been a real pleasure.
Absolutely, your work is beautiful.
Thank you very much.